Math Time with Mr. Baumhofer.
Third graders, Mr. Baumhofer here with another video lesson on fraction bars and fractions on a number line. So to start, we'll kind of go over what we remember. Remember, a fraction has a numerator and a denominator, and the numerator is on top and the denominator is on the bottom. Okay, and fractions can be represented with a fraction bar. Okay, and you'll see here I have a couple examples right here and here. And the denominator of a fraction, the bottom number, tells us how many equal parts the whole is broken up into. And the numerator tells us how many parts or how many equal parts you are talking about. So in this case, for this top example, I have 2/3. And then over here, I just drew a rectangular box for my fraction bar. Now, if the whole box, or if the box equals one whole, and I'm looking to divide it or see how much 2/3 of it would be, that means I have to divide the whole into the denominator number, which would be 3. And so I'll do that really quickly. And for problems like these, you try to divide them as equally as you can. So now I have 3 equal parts, and that's my denominator. And the top part, the numerator, wants to know how many parts I would shade in to show 2/3. And so I would shade in 2 because my numerator is 2. And it would look something like this. Okay, now for 1/5, I have to divide my box or my fraction bar into 5 pieces for 1/5 because the denominator is 5. We're only looking to see how much 1/5 of the whole would be, so I only have to shade in one section. So I'll have to try to divide it as evenly as possible. Oh, that's only 4, Mr. B. And I would shade in one part. So 1/5 would look like that on a fraction bar. Now let's take a look at fractions on a number line. So remember, we still have our numerator and our denominator, but our setup looks different. So for the top example, for all 3 examples actually, I have it between 0 and 1. So we're looking just for fractions between 0 and 1. And so between 0 and 1 would actually equal our whole. For the top example, I need to find where I would put my line for 1/2. Well, my denominator number is 2. So that means there will be 2 equal parts that the number line will be split up into. And then I'm looking for where the numerator number 1, where 1 out of 2 of those parts would be. So I would put my line for 1/2 exactly in the middle, and then I would label that line 1/2. Because it is 1 out of 2 equal parts through the whole. Okay, so for the second example, 1/3, well, my denominator is 3, so I would have to split my line into 3 equal parts. Okay, and this will take a little bit if you guys are practicing at home. Okay, and so now I actually have it split into 1, 2, 3 equal parts. Remember, these arrows on the end just mean that the number line continues on forever in each direction. But we're only looking at this chunk of the number line between 0 and 1. And so if I was to find 1/3, well, I would go 1, and this is 1 out of 3. So that would be the line I write 1/3 on. Now, say I wanted to find for this middle number line, where is 2/3? Well, I can look at my numerator. Now my numerator is 2. The denominator is still 3, which means the whole is broken up into 3 equal parts. But my numerator now says 2, so I need to find where 2 of those equal parts would be. And so if I add 1/3 and add another 1/3 to it, I can add the top numbers and keep the bottom denominator the same, and I get 2/3 at the next line. Okay, so for the now for the bottom problem, 1/4. Can you take a guess as to how many equal parts I need to divide my fraction number line into? Well, my denominator is 4, so I have to divide it into 4 equal parts. Okay, and so again, I'll try to show I have 1 section, 2, 3, and 4. And so I'm looking for 1/4, so I would go, well, here's 1 out of those 4 sections, so this line would be 1/4. Now, say I wanted to find 2/4 or 3/4. Well, I can do the same thing I did for the second problem where we were looking for 1/3 and 2/3, except this time I'm looking for 1/4. So the next line would be 1/4 plus 1/4, which would equal 2/4, otherwise known as 1/2. Now we'll get into how equivalent fractions and how to simplify them in a different video. But for now, this is how we do fraction bars and number lines. Okay, third graders, I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more.